All right, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to a vlog. I didn't do one last week for a few reasons that we're going to get into, but here we are. So what I'm drinking is I'm drinking a Hong Pao. This is something that was on the website 2 years ago when I was when no one really was buying from me, and I loved it, but it wasn't really moving. And then once sales increased and I wanted to put a new Yensha on the website, I went right for this one. But we're going to talk about that also later. So, a lot of things have happened in the last 2 weeks. I went to Huang Shan and I did a blog article about my trip to Huang Shan, and it was not what I thought it was going to be. For starters, so I went in and I was like, okay, I lived here for 5 years. I still keep in touch with people. I should be able to just slide in, find some Qimens. This was for the Qimen expansion pack. And bada boom, bada boom. Leave. Take me a day, two, maybe. And without getting too much into it, once again, if you're curious about the details, there's a blog article about it. Basically, almost nothing quite went the way I thought it was going to go. Tea-wise, I kept getting handed really, really yellowish golden teas. Like the liquor color was yellowish golden, and it was very light, very aromatic. And even when I was like, hey, I like stronger flavors, they kept handing me these lighter Qimens, which is weird for a few reasons. And I had one person say, this is what the market likes right now. But then, like, that same person, like a day or two later, I looked at his WeChat, and there was normally colored Qimens, and I was like, why didn't you pull this out? So that was strange. But I did find some that weren't too light. I did learn to appreciate those a little bit, and I did realize that it was a lot of my brewing. There was a big brewing difference. You guys know that when I brew Qimens, I brew them hard. I add extra leaves, boiling water, and I get this really full, complex, bold, delicious flavor. But when I was in Huangshan, they were using a lot less leaf. They were using, in one case, bigger gaiwans, cooler water. And Qimen is a tea that is very... I keep trying to figure out the easy way to say this. Changes in brewing parameters have a very big effect on the final flavor. And which is kind of the fun part, because you can brew one Qimen and you change the water temperature from boiling to below boiling, and you're going to get like two different teas. It's not like a Yensha where if boiling and below boiling are going to kind of give you, the below boiling might give you a slightly muted flavor, but the flavor is still the same. Qimens are going to get two different flavors. How much leaf? Too many flavors. How long do you brew? Two different flavors. That's one of the fun parts about Qimen. That's one of the things that really actually got me into Qimen, was that you can have one tea and just brew it so many different ways. It's like having 3 or 4 different teas. It's really a lot of fun. But I learned to appreciate the lighter styles. I did pick up, and so it ended up with me picking up teas that were lighter than I would have probably got before, but now I am enjoying them more. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I get this. I think I did a double rinse, but it's okay. But it was a lot. It was because it was a full day of Qimens, and it was a full day of like going to shops and not really finding what I was looking for, which is always kind of hard. But I got 3 Qimens. So the Qimen expansion pack has a Qimen Jin Mei, which is golden eyebrow, a Qimen Maofeng, which is a Qimen with no shape making steps, so whatever shape it naturally took on during making, that's the shape. And then a Qimen Shangluo, which is the Qimen that's kind of rolled similar to Bilo Chun, so it has a bit of a spiral shape. Those are 3 of the 4 main categories of Qimen, the 4th one being Qimen Gongfu, which is the daily drinker. But the 3 main categories, and Qimen Gongfu is kind of its own thing because they chop it up. The 3 types of whole leaf Maofengs are all in the Qimen expansion pack. So I sent out the first batch today. And this is kind of funny because I went to Huang Shan last week. I've been back for a week to the day. Why did it take me a week to send out teas? I've mentioned before that Swedish Stew is growing. The amount of orders is growing a lot. And this is offering me a lot of opportunities for selling wise. I can be a little more bold. I can be a little more I can be a little more bold in my buying because I have more confidence that something will sell more quickly. Whereas before, when you're only moving, 3 or 4 ounces per month, you got to really be careful about how much you buy because the return on that investment is going to be very slow. But now that I'm moving 3 or 4 ounces per week, which is not a ton. I'm not exactly balling out like big money bags here. But 3 or 4 ounces a week, I can be like, okay, I'm a little more confident that the return on the investment of buying a pound of tea, 2 pounds of tea, is going to come back a little bit quicker. So a lot of good things, but there is a small down. Well, there is at the same time. This many orders is acting almost like a stress test for the back end stuff. And I am seeing where I need to be kind of a step ahead. This is what this week has been, where it's because before when I ran out of packaging, I was moving a couple ounces a month, so I ran out of packaging, and I had time to get more packaging. And I said, okay, we're not going to get an order for another few days. It's fine. I'll get more packaging later. Now that we're getting orders a few times a week, I have to be like, any delay causes a buildup. Like a dam. It's more of a damming thing. And so this week was, and it was funny. I was coming back. I was in Huang Shan, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't have that many containers at home because I'm watching these Qimens expansion pack orders come in, and I was like, I don't have that many cylinders at home. I should order more. But I kind of thought I had a shelf full. I have like a small little shelf, and I said, okay, I think 1 or 2 of those shelves has a bunch, so I should have some. I got home and I just had none. I had like 3. And I was like, son of a bitch. I was wrong. So, okay. Had to order more cylinders. Those cylinders take a long time. For Chinese shipping, they take a long time. They take 2 or 3 days to even send out. And then 2 more days to actually arrive. It's like 5 days, when usually things in China take 2. So I was like, okay, so I got the cylinders. And then I'm printing out stickers, and I ran out of stickers. I ran out of labels. So that was another day delay. So, and it's that sort of thing. And then now I'm packing up teas, and like the Panyang Gongfu is sold out, and I was putting a lot of that in sample boxes. So but once again, just things weren't organized enough for me to see ahead of time that things were running out, and I should buy more. And so I didn't realize they were running out until they had run out, thus creating a delay. So I do have to buy more Panyang Gongfu. Yeah, so that was that. But it's fine. It's good. It's good. I'm learning. I'm getting better. This is going to be a thing for the new year, which you might as well talk about today too, because it's the 27th. Going into the new year, this is going to be a big focus. The 2 things I really want to focus on in this new year are having a little more foresight when it comes to filling orders, and organizing my shelves in a way where I can look at the shelf and say, okay, I can see this is running low. Do I want to restock, or when this sells out, is that it? Yeah, because there was other teas. There was one tea I went to It was on the shelf, and then I was just like, and then I opened the bag, and it was just empty, which was a shame. The rogue way. So yeah, so that's something. Packaging is another one. You know, I'm always thinking about packaging, specifically cakes, tea cake packaging. I think tea cake packaging is an area of packaging that I could very easily improve, and would just make the experience much much better. That's a very like, just get a bag of tea bags, tea papers, tea cake bags, tea cake papers that have my label on it. Um, and that's easy. That's an easy way to make packaging better. And then, sorry, I haven't washed this cup in a while. Yeah. Okay. So that's that. So let's go back. Okay. So let's go back to Huang Shan. So I was in Huang Shan. I got 3 Qimens, and you can check out the blog. Check out the blog to see how I got these Qimens, because 2 of the Qimens I didn't taste in Huang Shan, or I didn't taste when I bought them. I smelled it and I said, "Yep, this smells good. I like this smell," and then I bought it. And one of them turned out great. The other one turned out okay, and I ended up not. And so the other thing that happened this week, okay, so I got these 3 Qimens. I got a Qimen Jinmei, and I got 2 Qimen Maofangs, Qi Maofangs. So when you're talking about Qimens in Huangshan and probably other places in China, it's Qimen Maofeng, Qimen Jinmei, Qimen Shangluo. It's very long, so Qimen is often just shortened to Qi, and then so Qi Maofeng is Qimen Maofeng. Qimen Shangluo, Qilor, Qimen, and then Qimen Jinmei is just shortened to Qimei. Qimen Hongcha is just shortened to Qi Hong, because Qimen does make green tea, so you can't just say Qimen, it's Qi Hong. So yeah. So I got this Qimen. I got 2 Qimen Maofangs, and when I got back to Zheolong and I tasted them, I had this moment of like, it's okay, but it's not. I could do better. It could be better. Like, I could send it out and people would be happy with it, but I was like, these 2 flavors are just like a little too similar, and not even similar because they were both Maofangs. And there was just the difference was so basically in one of them there was like a thick, rich, the aroma in the shop was like raw honey. And then I was like, oh, it's gonna be super awesome tea. And then I got home and I tasted it, and I think the main thing is it just wasn't very clean. You know, it wasn't super bitter, super, funky, but it wasn't very clean. And when a tea isn't clean, it kind of interferes with the other flavors and aromas. For example, the Qimen Maofeng that is still in the box, the one that was better, super clean, super refreshing, and you're able to get the floral aroma. You're able to get the floral aroma so much easier, and it's so much more refreshing. This one is just a little kind of like raw honey, and that thick, little bit like almost not sour, but a bit of that fermentation taste. Not bad, but once again, with this other Maofeng, I was like, we're repeating ourselves here. It's not as diverse as I wanted. So I replaced that second one. So when I got home, I tasted them and I messaged my friend Xiao Xiao, who was the maker of the Qimen Maofeng. I was like, do you have a Shangluo? Do you have that 3rd type? And she said, yep. So I said, yep, let me get that. Bought it, and it's good. So that's the box. Qimen Jinmei, Qimei, Qimen Shangluo, Qimen Maofeng. And so then after Huang Shan, I went to Wuyi Shan. And this was interesting, because one of the reasons, so I had this day. I woke up in Huang Shan, like Friday or Saturday morning. I think it's Friday morning, I woke up in Huang Shan, and I remember I just bought in the last Qimen, and I was like, okay, I have 3 Qimens. I could keep looking, because even in Huang Shan, I kind of felt that. I was like, yeah, I have it, but I could do better. I feel like there's more shops I can go to. I was like, okay, do I want to do more Qimens or do I want to go to Wuyi Shan? Because I did want to get a Yensha on the website, and and so I decided to go to Wuyi Shan because I wanted a Yensha, and I also realized that if I left pretty much right then, I could go to Huang Shan to Wuyi Shan, which is like an hour, spend like an hour or two in Wuyi Shan, and then from Wuyi Shan, I could go home, and I could be home the same day, late at night, but I could be home that night. And yeah, and so that's what I decided to do. So I went to Wuyi Shan, took the train to Wuyi Shan, and I went to one shop, and I went to my friend's shop, and this was a friend who, I went to her shop I haven't been to Wuyi Shan in a couple of years, 2 years maybe. Went to her shop, and last time I was there, I got the Zhong Pao, which is not a very common cultivar, but one with a lot of interesting characteristics. And the last time I got it, I loved it. It was one of my favorite Yenshas I've had probably ever in a long time. And so when I went to Wuyi Shan, I was like, yeah, got to go back to that shop. So I go in, and the husband's there. And I messaged the woman. She's like, I'm not there right now. My husband's there. And so we start drinking teas, and you guys know me. And so one of the things I was looking for a high roast, something along the same lines as the Shui Xian. So okay, let me get a high roast. So I go in, and we have a tea, and I was like, yeah. I even said before, I was like, yeah, I like a high roast. And he was like, okay, and he brings out this tea, and it was kind of this color. So not by my standards, a high roast. And we drink it, and it's okay, and I'm like, this is good, but like, do you have anything higher? And he goes, yeah, and he goes and he comes back, and I mentioned the Zhong Pao, because when I had the Zhong Pao, it was higher. And so he comes back, and he brews something that's like not that much higher, like barely, maybe a little bit higher, but still more or less this color. And we drink it, and I was like, do you have anything higher? And I was like, like the Zhong Pao. Last time I really liked the Zhong Pao. Do you have the Zhong Pao? And he goes, okay, here, let me go and So he goes and he comes back and he brews a third tea. It's like the same color. And this whole time, we're talking about things, and we're talking about. And one of the things he said, different people have different ideas of what high roast means. And this is something I've heard before. And so he goes, it's hard to, when people like a high roast, it's hard to tell what they want. I was like, okay, that makes sense, but like, you keep bringing me the same fucking thing. And so even as as we're drinking this third one, as soon as he started drinking it, he's like, this is probably not high enough, is it? And I was like, no. And then he goes to get another tea, and it's the same fucking roast level. And I was like, you're fucking killing me. You're killing me here. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. And every time I was like, the Zhong Pao, do you have the Zhong Pao? And he would be like, and he just didn't seem to be getting it. I don't even fucking know. But then the wife comes back. And the wife comes back, and shit just makes so much more sense. Because the wife comes back, and it's like, the vibe was, okay, the boss is here. The boss is here. And I have a picture, and you can check my Instagram. I'll post it in a sec, post it here, where it's just like, she just comes in, and the husband's like, yep, I'm done. I'm good. And so it was very clear, like, okay. And then I was like, hey, yeah, there's Zhong Pao. She goes, yeah, we have the Zhong. And she gets me the Zhong Pao. And I drink, and I was like, yes. But then she also, here's the other part, before we drank the Zhong Pao, I was like, hey, I'm looking for a high roast. And she tells the husband to go get something, and he gets it, and it's finally a high roast. But it's not good. It is not good. And this is something I when I was living I used to live next to Wuyi Shan. I used to live in Jianyang, which is actually part of Zhenghe, but they make a lot of yanshas because right now more money in the yansha market. And so I blanked. And this is so this is the problem I would have when I was often going to Wuyi Shan trying to get these high roasts, where high roast doesn't mean it's good. You know, it's kind of like saying a high alcohol, where just because you have a high roast, I want a good high roast. And what would happen a lot is I would go to these shops and we'd have 2 or 3 teas, and I was like, hey, can I have a higher? Can I have it higher? And then we get this high roast, and it was high, but it wasn't good. The material wasn't good. The roast wasn't good. There was no flavors. It was bitter. It was harsh. And it's this awkward moment where they're like, is this high enough? And I was like, yeah, but I still don't want it. Still, it tastes like ass. And that's always a very awkward moment. Because, you know, they got you what you wanted. You made this big kerfuffle about high roast, so here's the high roast. And you still have to be like, no, don't want it. But luckily, so it was after that, and there was a moment, and I have in my stories, there's a moment I'm like, oh my God, I think I have to walk out without buying anything. But then she brings out there's a Hong Pao. And there's a Hong Pao is fantastic. And there's a Hong Pao, you see there's a little bit of, I would call this a medium roast. Some people right now in the market would call it a high roast. I don't know. Don't even know anymore. I have struggled a lot to find the vocabulary to communicate what I'm looking for, and I have failed. Tried Zuhor for a while. That didn't help. Zuhor means zu is like sufficient amount of something. So zuhor is a sufficient amount of fire, a sufficient amount of roast. But once again, it comes to that same problem of like what I think is sufficient and what you think is sufficient. Gotta check the battery real quick. It's 2 different things. So you ask for gaohuo and you ask for zuhor, you might just get the same thing. Anyway, so the Hong Pao, it's not as the roast isn't as high as it was before, and I will admit I do like it at a higher roast, but this is still very good. It's very clean. It's very clean, and because according to her, it is handmade, and I can believe it. I can believe this is handmade because they sent me home with some samples. You know, some of the teas we bought, and some of them. And I have to say, after tasting this and then tasting these, the cleanliness of this one is so clear. The cleanliness of this one is so clear. Where these are good, but that's, you know, the thing about side by sides is they really show you, and you get something, and then sometimes once you get it, you can't. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. And so recently cleanliness has been a whole thing. You know, like I said, I might write a blog article about. I can't write a blog article about this without people tasting it. Qimens, you know, my friends Qimen are just clean. You know, which is with the raw honey malfeng. It was a good malfeng, but it just wasn't clean, and that really fucked it up. These are decent, but they're not very clean. They're just thick and a little bit, not even funky. They're just not refreshing. This one is refreshing, and like I said, when it's refreshing, when it's clean, it just gives space for all the other flavors to show themselves, for all the flavors, for all the other mouthfeels. When it's not clean, it's like having a fuzzy TV. You know, you can pick stuff out and you can see it, but when you have that really clear picture and you can just see all the different colors and all the different, it's different. So I did finally get one. It is expensive-ish. It's not expensive for yanshas, but it is expensive, and it's it's more expensive than other teas. The trip to Huang Shan, 2 nights of the hotel, and then back from Huang Shan costs less than £1 of this tea, which is, on the one hand, a sign about how affordable it is to travel in the off season to Huang Shan and just in general, but also how expensive yanshas get. Because this is not particularly expensive. This is not particularly expensive for yanshas. It's a little there, but yanshas are expensive. Yanshas are fucking expensive. So yeah, that's that. That is the vlog. That is the catch up. Another thing I don't want to go too much into this, but I got this cup and it's fucking amazing and I love it. And it uses old style making, and I don't know exactly what that means yet. I'm gonna actually talk to the makers. I found this on Taobao, and I bought this, and I just bought a second cup from them because you hold it and it's like something's different. The weight is it's a little more heavy, but it's balanced, but it just feels more sturdy. It's light but sturdy. This is actually something I really like. So I'm going to add the people on WeChat so I don't have to keep, it's gonna be a long speech, so I don't have to keep talking, I don't have to talk to them through Taobao, and that way I can also get better pricing and hopefully visit their studio and learn more about what exactly is the traditional way. Get better prices, and then eventually put these on the website. Put this sort of teaware on the website. Not cheap. This one cost me like $100. So if I were to put this on the website, I would probably put this at $130. And so markups are there, but not, it's not a huge markup for anything really. But yeah, so these are going to go on the website eventually. It's down the line. I want to talk to them. I want to understand it a little bit more, give some more information so people understand why it's expensive and what's the difference and yada yada. But this is coming. It's really good. Even with that longer steep, still really nice. All right, well, that's it. I packed a lot of orders, but a lot of the orders, I ran out of boxes. And that's wild. That's one. I've had some of these boxes for years. Like 2 years ago, I bought a shit ton of boxes and they were not moving and they weren't, it wasn't moving. And then recently that was a big one. I was like, holy shit. But that's another one that's taking a really long time to get here. I ordered that a few days ago and it's still not going to come for a day or two. 2 days, it's not going to come. So that sucks. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for joining me. Like I said, check out the blog article for a little more details about my trip to Huang Shan. Qimen expansion pack. It's the 3 types of full leaf Qimens. That's cool. And look out for some teas to come. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate all of you.